Hi, everybody. It's John and Carter out in the garden again, and I feel a little bit bad. With all this rain, we've not been able to give you video update number 5 on planting our tomatoes and straw bales. So finally, we're on 4th of July week. I think today's July the 2nd. We're finally at a point where we can go through and look at our progress and see how we've done. So just a quick update. We put out our straw bales and started conditioning them in the cold weather of the 3rd week of March. And then we continued to put fertilizer on them about every week to get them conditioned and warm up and start decomposing. And then we finally planted the tomatoes in the straw bale. It would have been the 2nd week of May. It was about May the 10th. Okay. And so now jump forward 2 months later, we're up to July the 2nd. And so you can see where we're at. And first of all, let me just mention that there's about 8 different varieties of tomatoes out here. Some of them are dwarf and some of them will not get very tall, but some of them will get very tall. And so even though they look very different, a lot of that's related to the variety of tomatoes that we're growing here. We've got some cherry type tomatoes. I've got some tomatoes that are used to make like spaghetti sauce that have no seed. I've got some tomatoes, lots of tomatoes that are yellow. And then we have, of course, the traditional red tomatoes. So we've got all different varieties here. And so you can see where we're at now, and I'll show you how I tie them up and take good care of them. But one thing that I will say about taking care of my tomatoes, I'm ruthless on taking care of them, because really growing tomatoes in the Ozarks it's a race, because we have so much moisture. Even though this, of course, May was the wettest May in history, we got a lot of dampness in the air anytime, any year. And so that causes disease. And we can't hardly really see it right now, but you can see it down here on the bottom of this one. We're already starting to get some fungus blight on this tomato. Now, don't panic. That's going to happen. And it will slowly begin to creep up the tomato plant. And so, again, we're sort of in a race. We've got to get to a race where we harvest the tomatoes before the blight takes over all the tomatoes, which is fine. Again, it doesn't hurt the quality of the tomatoes. And they've done a lot of research on that. And really, again, it's just the race. So we've got to make sure that we're getting the tomatoes to set and fruit and ripen as quick as possible before finally, when we usually get around mid-August, the whole plant is so overtaken with fungus that, again, tomato season sort of dies on it. Now, there are some options there. Some people will spray them with fungicide. I don't do that. Even in this very wet season, I have not done anything as far as a spray on these tomatoes. If you did spray them with a fungicide, either an organic fungicide like neem oil or a more chemical fungicide, if you're not an organic type of person, you could probably keep these plants very healthy up until the end of August and September, and you might get additional tomatoes. One thing that we've just noticed is it seems to be about the end of August, people get a little sick of tomatoes. We've had our tomato season, we're worn out, and they really become more ammunition than they become food. So we're fine with, by the end of August, it going down. So again, I don't spray these with anything. There's no chemical spray at all on these, and they're all completely just the way God made them, and the rain took care of them. So again, just looking here, you can see that I've tied them up on my hog wire. Here's the straw bales. I don't know if you can remember, the straw bales were much higher, and so they're beginning to break down lower and lower and lower. And by the time we get to the end of the season and the end of August, there'll be almost nothing left. But surprisingly, the tomatoes will keep going on. You can see that I've installed that soaker hose in there, and it's surprising, folks, because that straw does not hold much water. That's one of the great things about it. It has good drainage, and that's great. But because it doesn't hold much water, even if we've had a really heavy rain yesterday, I'm probably still going to have to water today. So what I do is I have these connected with a fast connect hose. I'll come out at night and I'll connect them up and run the water for about an hour. And that will soak the bales then again. So again, it's surprising that even on a really wet weather, you can have one dry day and it's already time to water again. It's not like regular soil, which you get a good rain and you don't have to water for a week. But so again, you can see I've got it installed there and we're tying it up the hog wire. And you can see I use this, you could use anything. Of course, growing up as a kid, we always used to use pantyhose, but nobody wears pantyhose anymore. So I just buy this rubber tie. I buy it in huge rolls. And I use rubber ties, or I've got some green ones around here too. So, and you could use anything this time up. So I'm going through and tying these up, keeping them very, very straight because I don't want them to fall all over themselves. And one thing Carter's going to show me here is I always carry my clippers with me. And I was always, growing up, we always talked about these as being suckers. So I always go through and remove the sucker from the joint of the leaf. Here's a leaf coming out. Here's the main stem. And most tomatoes will have a sucker that comes up there. And so I cut those out. Here's another one up here. And I'm going to cut that one out. And what that does is it drives all the energy back into the main stem where the tomatoes are growing. So your tomatoes will be bigger. They'll set fruit faster and they'll ripen faster. And what maybe even more importantly is it opens up the tomato plants and reduces the amount of moisture that can, if you've got this just full of tomato leaves, then that moisture doesn't have a chance for the sun to hit it and for the wind to blow through it and dry it out. So being very aggressive and cutting out all the suckers is a great way to keep that very area and open and reduce the competition from the disease. And so I do that pretty aggressively, but let's just admit it. Many people don't have the time that I have to come out or enjoy it and do it like I do. And you can let them go crazy and you'll still get tomatoes out of them. You just may not get them as big and healthy looking as mine because I'm so aggressive about pulling out those suckers. So again, coming back this way, again, you can see sort of the wall here. There was no organizational pattern. They're just sort of random, all the different varieties. Here you can see this one is obviously some type of little cherry type tomato that's setting fruit right now. And you can see all the way down through there. And then back in here, you can see again, another group of them here that are just going up. Again, they're all different varieties here. I think Carter showed you earlier. Here's a yellow one that this one is a variety called, let's see, I always label them. This is Lemon Boy. That Lemon Boy plant, I had never had it before, and boy, it set fruit early. And so there's a yellow lemon. We've only had a couple of the red ones that have come on yet. I'm sure they'll come on here in the next couple of weeks. But the Lemon Boy, look at this truss of tomatoes here. This is a variety called Big Beef. It's an award winner. I love Big Beef. It's a red tomato. They don't get too large, but look how many tomatoes are on Big Beef there. And so it's a favorite of mine and it's always very healthy. And again, it's one that I'd highly recommend for a medium-sized, healthy red tomato. So anyway, so right now, they're obviously very tall. This one is as tall as I am now. The next step is going to be I'll watch them. Now, when they get to a certain point, in fact, this one over here, Carter, you stay on that side and I'll come over here. This one's getting close. I already did nip it out. I've already cut the top out of this one. What's going to happen? Those tomatoes will keep growing higher and higher and higher, and it's okay. But what happens when they get to a certain height, my fence runs out and they fall over, and that's bad business. So what I always do when they get to the top, maybe let them go up another foot, I chop off the top. What that tells this plant now is you don't have a chance to grow anymore. That leader is nipped out. It won't grow anymore, and I might have to come back and nip it out a couple of times because it'll try to regrow, but it reforces all that energy back into the tomatoes and will allow them to go. And this is a small cherry tomato, so they will ripen pretty quickly. But if it was a larger type tomato, what will happen is that these ones at the very top, they're just pollinating right now. If they set fruit right now, it's going to be a race to make sure that I can harvest them before October when the frost comes. So there's no reason to set any more up here because they won't ripen in time. So again, nipping them out when they reach the top of your cage and they don't fall over and just make a mess. And so I know it's hard. A lot of people don't like to do that. It makes them sad. Here, I'll just show you this one. I'm going to chop this leader out right here so that one won't grow any higher. It's going to stop right there. And it just keeps your tomatoes nicer and more neat. So again, chop them off when they get to too far past your leader there. I come through and I do it on a schedule about every 3 weeks. I sprinkle, they got another sucker there. About every 3 weeks, I sprinkle a balanced fertilizer granule on the tomatoes. That lasts for about 3 weeks, but I keep a close eye on them. When we've had all that rain, I actually had to come out and add an extra application, and I could just tell that the green leaves were getting a little pale. You don't want them crazy dark green. You want them a nice moderate green. And so again, about every 3 weeks, I sprinkle fertilizer on them. And that's really all I do unless I see the color going bad. And again, other than watering them every night and tying them up every few days, again, that's how we grow in straw bales. So anyway, I just wanted to give you an update. And so that's where we're at, and hope that if you've tried it and you're watching this on Facebook, and show me a picture. I want to see how yours are turning out, and yours are probably better looking than mine. So Thanks, Carter, for filming you, and get out there into your garden and enjoy this beautiful weather in the Ozarks.